Eric Burgess here with Music Marketing TV. Today we're going to be taking this sound and turning it into this sound. All right, so let's talk about this effect. It looks a little complicated, but once you understand all the automation moves, you realize it's not that crazy. We're just being sort of way more deliberate than you might normally be with a reverb. So the idea is we're going to take a saw wave input. We are going to filter it with a filter move. And I really don't want this to be very much about the input, but about what Spacerek can do to that input just with verb alone. It's honestly astonishing. You can get stereo moves, pitch shifting effects, and a beautiful, I guess, spatial positioning that's beyond just stereo moves, but also a sense of space all at the same time. And it's really a nice effect. So let's talk about how to do it. So first, we need to make our core sound. Grab anything that can make a saw wave. In my case, I'm going to pull up my channel rack here. I'm going to grab Harmor. I'm going to activate legato to play multiple notes because right now it's monophonic. I'm pretty sure something here is not the way it's supposed to be, but I'm going to turn this on and now I can play multiple notes. This has got to be a bug, I think, because legato shouldn't do that. But anyways, we're going to take this. We are going to write in a C minor 7 chord. I'm going to repeat it. Let's send this to a track. Let's color it. I just kind of want to get this stuff out of the way. We'll make it like a nice dark blue since it's a chord related thing. And we'll call this our washed out chords. And then what we're going to do is we are going to do a filter move. So if we play this as is right now, they hit all at once. We're going to automate a filter. And that's the reason we send this over here by assigning it a track. It nests the automation with it, which is really nice. We're going to take this, put it on up, and come back down and duplicate this. We'll do something like that across each one so that they line up. And let's make it just a little more tight. Maybe not as high. All right, very nice. That sounds pretty good. That's going to be our input. That's all we're doing for the input. So I just want you to understand the extent of the input and sort of that's the sound. That's it. And what we're going to do is we're going to add Spacerek to it. Spacerek has a ton of models, and these models use an algorithm, so they're very CPU efficient. So one of the things they're very proud of is how you can select all these different spaces and mic setups. So if you're doing like Foley or trying to match a space for dialogue, this is fantastic for that kind of work. We're going to be doing sound design with it. So the idea here is there's sort of two ideas. The first one is we want to leverage early and late reflections to give a really unique sort of very cohesive filtering effect. That's our first one. We're going to have the sound come in this very sort of, cohesive, I think is the best word. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use the balance to give it a stereo image that changes. We want it to arrive at a spot right at the end of these. So this is going to fade in. That's sort of our idea. So here at measure 5, that's the arrival. We're going to use the EQ in here to do some tilting. If you're unfamiliar with d16, man, it's a very colorful reverb. So if you're looking for a colorful reverb, this has some fantastic sounding filters. And then we're going to use the predelay to create a pitch shift. So let's start at the init preset. Here's the init preset, just so we're starting from square one. So you can see the parts get added one by one. First, we should pick a reverb model. Now there's a ton, and they're all, interesting. There's all these different mic setups for them. I'm going to go for a longer room and just experiment. We can always change this later and just see which one we like the most. I'm going to try this lighthouse one. Oh, this actually doesn't look that crazy. Let's see. It's all right. It's kind of in the middle. Let's see if we can find one that really screams big. Now this is the presets. Abandoned space looks really promising. Let's stick in here and look for just a big one. Oh, see that's a big number there, so this should be pretty long. A large amount of pre-delay, don't know if we want that. This could be an interesting starting point. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to automate basically everything we want to do in one fell swoop. We want to automate basically everything. We want the late reflection. We don't want the early reflection. It's one of the few things we don't want. We want all three balances, and we want all three volumes. I'm not saying we're going to use all of them, but we want them there just so they're an option for us to touch. If you don't automate them, you're just kind of less likely to use them. So we're going to browse parameters, and we're going to grab this. We'll grab early just in case. We'll grab the late. We'll grab the balances here. Direct volume. This is the direct sound. Then you've got your early reflections and your late reflections. And we'll grab the frequency and slope of the tilt EQ and turn that on. So we're automating essentially everything here. But there are specific reasons why I want some of these things. These are going to be our stereo image devices. This is going to be our filter. Even though they say volume, this controls early reflections. This is essentially almost like a filter control to me. Over here, we're going to mess with late. If you automate the delay on something, it will create a pitch shift. If you're adding delay, it will pitch shift down. If you're reducing delay, it will pitch shift up. I don't plan on doing this with the early reflections, but the late ones are going to give this magic smearing effect. And we want to go to just before they separate from the direct sound. We want the pre-delay to act as a smearing sort of a thing. So let's start with that move so you can hear what I mean. So we don't really care about this one, but it's here in case we ever want to mess with it. There's some, interesting things you could do there. We're trying to mix in maybe another pitch shift, but I find just the one usually enough. So we're going to take this and bring it up around there. Let's see if it falls apart, and then we'll bring it back down to the original. Okay, and then we'll leave it here for the moment because it coming back down will cause another pitch shift. And so if you want to remove it, you'd have to really bring it down slowly over time, or you could copy the preset without the automation and then do a fade, a mixed exchange there where you mix this one out, mix in the static one. And that's another way of removing it without introducing a pitch shift backwards, which is just a nice trick. Okay, so that's pretty good. So we have this pitch shift down, and it's not overbearing. Depending on the model you pick, this one's got already some stuff going on in it in terms of discrete echoes. And because of that, other models will respond differently. For example, let's pick one like a shorter one. I don't know, let's go for the Lighthouse one. Let's see how that sounds. Pitch shift down. And then you're hearing the pitch shifting again. So pretty interesting options for lo-fi potentially there. We'll leave this as is for the moment. The next thing let's focus on, so that's our pitch shift move, is let's focus on getting a direct balance, a stereo image going. So if we have direct sound, this is sort of the least interesting thing, and it's the thing that's going to be the core of the sound that we sort of arrive at. So I'm going to set a automation point here at the beginning, or at the point we want to arrive. I'm just going to get rid of it and have it come in just sort of at the very end. So this is going to be the core of the sound, and this sort of reinforces it, and we're here. The other two volumes for early and late, we're going to have act as our filters. So first we'll start with very strong late reflections, and they'll come down to the level that they're at with no boost or cut. And we'll have this start out high and come down. And we'll do the opposite for the late. Or I'm sorry, not the late, the early. We're going to early volume, and we'll have this one come in. So this will fade in. Sounds like this. So this will fade in, this will fade out. This fades in much quicker than the direct volume. We might even have it come up a little more concave. And I might need to do a bit of a volume adjustment to adjust for how loud this is. Alternatively, we could just take this down some. Somewhere around there. Okay, tilt EQ. I want to have a big boost and have it sweep down as we get closer to our arrival point. We're going to favor the high end, and then it'll sort of come down. So to do that, I am going to have a big swing. First, I'm going to set a 0 point again, somewhere around there, right? And then we're going to come down to the low end some, and we're going to start at the extreme high end. So you see we're around 10 kilohertz. This is going to come down. Doesn't matter if there's no boost, though. So we're going to set something that adds a boost, and it will slowly lose that boost. So this is a level move. You may need to change the level and do a gain compensation, and you may need to automate the gain compensation over time. But this will give us a really nice coloring. By the time we get to this move and it comes back up, this is so close to 0 that this really doesn't matter anymore. So they will become less effective as we progress, which is kind of what we want, right? We want it to fade out because we're getting somewhere. Okay, and I think we do want to touch this. Let's type in 0.5 exactly. And we'll delete that. So for the panning moves, I want the early reflections to be ever so slightly left and come back to center. So we'll set the balance ever so slightly. Oh, we're ever so slightly right. Whatever. We want it in one direction. And the other one we're going to set left. So we'll go down instead of up. This is the late. This will give us a nice stereo image that changes until we arrive at the center again. A little strong on the left side. Or, yeah, it's the left side that's a little strong. Let's bring this up. And we've arrived at a spot. So these moves combined, you could do different things. You could change up how they interact. You could have the early reflections take longer to come in, but it's a very natural sound because it just comes from our input. The input is normally going to have reflections anyways. And so it just feels like it's almost built into the sound in a way. As opposed to something like a filter move, which feels like we're sculpting stuff out. This feels like it's almost just an extension of what's already going on. So I like doing moves like this. I think they lead to way more interesting soundscapes, and they're also just way more deliberate about when you might have things panning one way or another. It's a very interesting way to add panning to a mix. And let's take a look here at, so this is with this space. Let's take a look at a few more. So this is the lighthouse. Let's go for a long room. There we go. Let's check out another one. Now, we could go through presets. That's where this could get more interesting. So we keep all these automation moves, but we gave it a preset. So this will already have something starting. The automation will largely just override the preset. Because we've automated everything we care about, we're guaranteed that those knobs will behave the same. So it's kind of like a way of browsing the reverb model almost more at this point. And it might change a few things about how the mid-side low cut and those things interact. One that usually works well with moves like this is these big long ones, like abandoned space is a huge space. And this one tends to work well. But again, when it sees our automation, right, all these values change automatically to what we set. Anyways, it's an interesting thing. And see here, it does feel like it needs to go for longer, just the way it sounds. So what we could do is have it really grow over time and just keep falling and falling. It has an instant drop. We could leave this high. But hopefully this gives you some interesting ideas on how to use Spacerek, how to integrate it into a mix. If you have anything that repeats or is very atmospheric, this can work wonders. And again, our input currently is pretty boring. There's not a lot going on. It's just a little astonishing how well it does. So I've added a little bit to this just to sort of show you where this idea can go and how sort of strong of an idea it can be. I've added an interesting sort of ARP to the chord just as it goes, but the bass chord is still there. There's now some drums that fade in over time, and there is a high pass. And importantly, this is sort of the big cool idea. This is the high pass. This filter move is controlling how bright this move up here is allowed to be. I'm specifically automating, I think it's the min. I'm automating the minimum level. So this minimum level will go up, pushing the cutoff up, making it a brighter sound. And this combined with our delay move just adds up, and a neat art, just adds up to a really cool sort of experience. It is a little bit condensed because it's so short, but here it is. That's a pretty cool freaking moment. There's definitely some refining that needs to happen, but you can sort of see where this can go. These small ideas, it's just the control they give you. It's really, really cool. So hopefully this gives you some neat ideas on how you can add Spacerek to some of your productions. Subscribe and hit that bell icon for future videos, and have a blessed day. Thank you.